Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and this is the Broken Meeple, a show where I devote my time to ranting and raving about board games, but usually more the ranting part, let's be honest. Today is a compilation review video. I was sent a bunch of review copies from Korea Board Games, who do some interesting quirky stuff every now and again, and I decided, you know what, I wanted to try some of these out. You know, a couple I've never really heard of before, but Coffee Rush was definitely on my radar, but I knew ahead of time that they were all going to be in Korea. Yeah, these are entirely in Korean, these copies. So I also wanted to test out just how language independent these were at the same time. Well, I can tell you right off the bat that these two, Purrfect Place and the original Coffee Rush, work perfectly well. They are language independent. Yes, you've got to use the QR code to get the rulebook in English and that, or go to their website, but the actual game is entirely pictures, icons, whatever, so you don't need to worry about the language. Unfortunately, the expansion to Coffee Rush has cake cards which have text on them, so you have a bit of an issue there. And the Reiner Knizier's Shall We, as it's called, is mostly language independent, but there's some ways that you can tweak the setup of the game with these tiles. There's about 8 of them and they have text on them, so you can kind of get around that. But yeah, you've only really got 2 things here that are language independent, otherwise you're going to have to make concessions. That's if you happen to get Korean copies of this game. If you're able to get English ones, you ain't got this problem. So basically, rather than do a video for each, I am basically going to just review them very quickly in turn. So we've got Purrfect Place, a little filler, Coffee Rush, a very light little game here. The expansion to Coffee Rush, I think it's called Piece of Cake. I'll have to double check because after all, it's in Korean. And Shall We from Reiner Knizia. So some of these have been out for a couple of years. I think Shall We's relatively recent, but I'm just going to give my thoughts on them fairly quickly and let you know.
Wingus, Dingus, listen up.
So we're going to start off first with the little filler, Purrfect Place. I'm not doing these in any order of ranking or anything like that. This is just literally what I'm picking up in front of me. This is Purrfect Place, which has very cutesy little cat artwork, which kind of reminds me a bit of the artwork of the cat from Cat in the Box. You remember that little Bezier Games one? But this is basically a first person to win 2 rounds affair. So you got these cool sort of cat in a bottle meeples to basically simulate that I've won the round or won 2 rounds. And the idea is, depending on the player count, you're going to have so many cards face down in front of you. There will be a deck of cards, and then there'll be a discard pile as, bring it back there so you can actually kind of see, as such. And the idea is that you're trying to get rid of your cards in order to end the round. And it's one of those games where you want the fewest points possible, and all the numbers on here are points. The cards are numbered 1 to 11, and the idea is what you're trying to do in order to get rid of your cards is basically get the same value in the column that there is. So I've got a 6 here. I need to get a 6 in this particular card here, which at the moment is a 10. So these won't go away, but basically if I can't get the numbers to match, they'll stick around and they're worth points. You're trying to get rid of them. The way you do it is that you've got a couple of actions that you do, like drawing a card and exchanging it with one in your grid, taking the top one of the discard pile, putting one available for someone else to have in order to flip one of yours over. Just very little simple actions like that. But the idea is that I might be able to, for example, let's say, all right, let's grab a couple of cards here, for example. Let's say this was my setup here, and I had an 8 and a 6 here. Well, there's an 8 on top of the pile. I can take this 8 and, exchange it with the 6, and then that creates 2 8s. They go away, very simple stuff like that. The one little quirk is that you're able to stack certain cards. So 11 is kind of like the magic number here. If you can get it so that your cards can basically add up to 11. So here I've got an 8 and 11 here. At the moment that's worth 19 points. That's pretty dire and horrible. But if I'm able to find a 3 somewhere, like on top of the discard pile when it's my turn, I can basically stack it on top of the 8 to make 11. The column now has 2 11s, they all go away. And if you do stack a couple of cards, you'll get an extra turn, so you are technically adding more points to your pile, but that extra turn might allow you to get rid of it in a minute. So you're kind of doing a little bit of a high risk, high reward strategy. And that's kind of the gist of it. You just carry on until somebody's got rid of their cards in front of them. I think it's 6 or 8, depending on the player count. And then at the end of the round, you see who got the fewest points, of which any cards that you did get rid of, so the ones that go aside here, they're worth -1 point. These are all worth positive points, and you want the lowest points, a bit like no thanks, if you remember that little filler. And then you just keep going until someone's won 2 rounds. This is a very simple micro filler. It's got very easy rules. I like the cat artwork. It's very cutesy. It's just like, oh, you know, even though this numbers come in like colors, it's still basically the numbers. You don't have to worry about color blindness or anything. But there's not a huge amount to this game, really. I mean, it's only meant to be a 30-minute filler. You know, it's, you know, if that. I mean, it could even be less time than that. But there's not a huge amount of decision space in this game, and, you know, we'll talk about that a bit more a little bit later. But basically, all you're really doing is drawing a card and saying, like, all right, do I want to exchange it with one in my grid? Do I want to take it from the deck, or do I want to take it from the discard pile? Or do I want to just flip one over so I can flip one of my cards over? There's not a huge amount of, like, I mean, there's certainly no real strategy in this game, and even tactics-wise, there's not a great deal of that either. I mean, you're at the mercy of what other players shove in the deck. And so you find that some players just kind of win by blind luck, really. And yeah, I know, you know, light little fillers that only take about 20-30 minutes to play don't tend to have a huge amount of skill involved. But let's face it, I have more decision space in something like Love Letter for a game that only takes, you know, like 5 minutes to play a single game, because at least I'm making deductive reasoning over what what other players might have, even though, yes, there's a lot of luck in that game. But here, I don't feel like the better player wins ever. It's just, you know, the card on the top of the deck just happens to be exactly what I need to make these two columns go away. Well, lucky me, it just happened to be that way. You know, I draw a card off the top of the deck and it's like, oh, it's an 11. I can put this here and then suddenly I've got, you know, I can exchange it with this, and then all of a sudden I've got two 11s. And the other bit of luck that's kind of annoying is that when you get to the end of the round, let's say somebody's got a bunch of cards. You know, let's say I've got a little setup like this. Okay, so, you know, we've got the discard pile here. I've done pretty badly, and these are the only two I got rid of. Okay, so I'm left with these. You have to flip over all your cards at the end, and then if you've got columns that match, they'll go away at that point. So I could flip over these 3 cards now, find out that they are just conveniently 2 8s and 2 11s. They go away, and I don't have any problem with points. But I didn't do anything there. I literally just had blind luck as to what was in my piles at the time. So somebody could literally, like, trigger the end of the game, be in a good position, and still lose purely because somebody had a lucky draw. That just doesn't sit well with me, even for a filler. So this one was a little disappointing. I was kind of hoping there'd just be a little bit more cleverness. And like I say, Asia tends to put out a lot of cool, quirky fillers. There are some really good stuff that comes out of Asia. I mean, I was talking a lot about vegetable stock. I mean, Love Letter, I believe, originated in Asia as well. There was Hanamakoji, I mean, you know, that's a filler for 2 players, and that originated over there, I believe. But there was another one, Kobayakawa, sorry, it's like this tiny little card game that Z Garcia really liked. You know, there's a few of them that are like, yeah, you know what, these are pretty cool little quirky card games, and this one just doesn't feel that quirky, which is a shame because it's got simple rules and it's easy to read and it's got these cool sort of purple like round counters, but that's kind of all it's got going for it, really. So this one's like, it passes the time, you know, you get a little bit of fun out of it, but this is kind of like 5 out of 10 territory. It's average, it kills the time, it's easy to learn, it looks nice and it's cheap, but there's just not a huge amount of decision space in it, and I kind of want just a little bit more cleverness out of my little fillers. Okay, we're going to move on to Coffee Rush now. I've been very interested to try this one because it came out to Essen in the previous year. I think actually prior year, not 2024, I think even 2023 in fact. I don't know, I lose track of time. And I didn't really get a chance to look into it, and by the time I even thought, oh yeah, I might want to give Coffee Rush a look, it sold out at Essen, and I didn't feel like trying it at that point. And ever since then, I never really saw the game until this opportunity arose. So it's like, all right, cool, I want to try this out. So this is effectively kind of like a light, almost kind of gateway level game, I'd say. It's kind of like it's not a speed game, it's not real time, but it's all about basically serving different types of coffee in your shop as fast as humanly possible because the orders are coming in quicker than you can kind of handle them. Essentially, basically all revolves around a little grid of ingredients. So let's take a bunch of stuff out. First off, I will mention the component quality in this game is off the friggin' chain, and I know I use that phrase a lot, but I mean it here because wow! For a game that's not that expensive, I mean, you have got an insert here with little plastic, you know, but you'd think they were glass at first, but little plastic coffee cups like this, oh, they look so cool. It's such a cool thing to like have those. But then you've got 2 component trays with, you know, decent looking resources for things like coffee beans and like steam and chocolate and like coffee leaves and caramel blocks and, you know, I think that's cream on ice. The only thing that was missing from my copy was the water droplet, so I've had to substitute blue cubes in there. Yes, I have a few spare, but, you know, that blemish aside, you know, they'll send the replacements soon. But these are really nice little components for a game that is not that expensive. This is relatively cheap to buy, and it staggers me how they've managed to, you know, deal with this production quality. I mean, go you guys. But the game is very straightforward. Basically, you have a board with some upgrade tiles that you can have. I'm just going to put 4 here at random. Yes, you have them like color-coded, basically. And you have 3 of these little coffee cups. And the idea is that there's a deck of cards with all these different orders. So, I mean, you've got all your famous coffees that you know, cocoa, mochaino, iced chocolate latte, green tea, okay, not all coffees, espresso, doppio, cafe latte, americano, milk tea, Einspanner, I'm not even sure what that is, Americanos, cold brew. I mean, I'm partial to, every time I go to a coffee store, I'm partial to a cappuccino. I do particularly like those, and I'm very much into iced coffee. I mean, with the fact that it's getting hotter in the summer, when I go to my weekly sort of, I've got a voucher on Free Mobile that lets me get cheap coffee every week at Cafe Nero. I go there every Monday pretty much at work, and as it's getting hotter, I'm ordering more iced coffees. I just find it great to just sit in there, relax, a little bit of jazz music in my ear, on my earphones, just to kind of get into the mood, and it's just like, and try to forget work. Anyway, I'm supposed to be talking about this game. And the idea is that with these 3 cups, you'll have a bunch of orders. So here we go. So we'll take a ristretto and a few of these, you know, as the game goes on. And what you do is that you are able to move your meeple on this board, and you're restricted to how far you can move it in what directions. But basically, every space you pass over, you get the ingredients. The ingredients have to go in these cups, and you have to decide at the time which of the 3 you're going to put them in. So, I mean, we'll put a chocolate in there, we'll put a caramel in there, we'll put a coffee bean in this chocolate one here. And the idea is that you've got to make these match the orders exactly. You cannot have them contain other stuff. You know, if you're serving me a cappuccino, I do not want, you know, if I don't want it iced coffee, I don't want ice in my coffee. You know, I didn't ask for caramel syrup, therefore don't give me caramel syrup, you know. So you've got to make these match the orders of which they're pictured as they want. I mean, like, for example, a caramel cafe freddo wants coffee, caramel, and ice. Well, go figure, you know. And the idea is that as you complete these, they go above your board and they count as points, basically. But the problem is that after every turn, you're having to basically move these down. And if they fall off your board, they go into a penalty pile, which is not good. But these orders are coming in pretty quick, because as other players complete orders, it basically spams orders on other players. So you're getting orders constantly as people are getting stuff done, and you can only do so many of them at once, and you've only got 3 cups to micromanage your little resource gatherings, not to mention you've only got, you know, typically 3 spaces to move this guy. It's like, how are you going to keep up with all these orders, and how many of them are going to go through? Hence the term coffee rush. It is very much trying to rush these orders to completion to the best of your ability, but you're not going to be able to do them all, or if you do it, insanely hard. And as you go through the game, you're able to exchange, like, you know, coffees that you've completed to flip upgrade tiles, which basically give you more ways to move your meeple. So I can get 2 ingredients if I go on a space, I can share a space with a player and, you know, get 2 of theirs, or I can move it multiple spaces, I can move it diagonally now, you know, little simple things like that. And that's kind of the whole point of the game, really. You basically just carry on until the end game trigger and see who scored the most orders, you know, and lost points from penalties. It's very straightforward, and it's just a nice light game. I mean, it is pretty much a gateway game. You know, there's not a lot of complexity to this. I mean, you move this guy, you get the resources pictured, you try to match them to the order, and you try and do it as quick as possible. The upgrade tiles are really easy. There's nothing complicated about these. I mean, most of them are pretty self-explanatory from the symbol. You know, and that's it. That's all the game is. You just basically do that. And you might think, well, that kind of makes this game a little bit too light, doesn't it? And yes, it's light. This is not really a gamer's game. I would say that for someone like me, I can get a little bit of a laugh out of this, but there's not really enough here to keep me personally entertained, like game after game after game. But for families, for a game cafe, I mean, this is perfect for a game cafe to have something that looks like this and is so easy to learn on your table or on your shelf. But, you know, I think for families, you know, when you've got younger players or brand new players who just want something light, and to be honest, even for me, as I say, as a gamer, I can only get so much out of it, but I like coffee. I like going to coffee shops and just relaxing with a nice coffee and this sort of thing with like really nice components. I gotta give them props where it's due. It's very light, very simple, very well produced, and it's just like a nice little giggle and doesn't take very long. I mean, by the time you start playing that, you're done in 30 to 45 minutes, so it is a short game as well. It's just lovely and pleasant, really. That's all I can really say. It's not going to blow the doors off, apart from the production quality. That is pretty impressive, actually, to be honest. You know, it's just nice, calm, pleasant, just like going to an actual coffee shop. I give this one a 7 out of 10, honestly. It's good. Not amazing, not fantastic, but I think for the right setting and the right group of people, I think this is gonna, you know, hit home quite well. And I'm just very impressed on how, for a relatively cheap price and not the biggest box ever, they've managed to produce it in such a nice way. So yeah, I am pretty impressed with this one overall. So while we're on the subject, let's talk about the expansion, a piece of cake. So this one comes in its own box, and basically this does what a typical expansion should. Add a little bit more to the game without adding too much complexity. So in Piece of Cake, you effectively have cake cards. Let me get the box off here. And this one is not entirely language independent. So, you know, I've got a separate, like, the cards are separated out, but I've basically got the backup schedules here for the actual cake cards. And the idea with this one is basically it replenishes you with some of the components you already had, which I find kind of weird. I mean, you've got new player boards, which are supposed to replace the old ones. But literally, the only difference between the two is the fact that you can see it's people going around a cake store rather than going around a coffee store, and a tiny little symbol down there, which is a rush token. Basically, you get rush tokens in the original game and it allows you to do more movement with the meeple. That's literally all it is, it's just not printed on the board in the original. It's not that difficult to remember that rule, frankly, and honestly, I prefer the look of the original one with the coffee and the baristas than I do this pinky one with the cake, like, you know, cake people running around. So honestly, this just feels like a bit of a waste. And then it gives you 2 more component trays, just so that you can spread them around the table more. Honestly, I never really felt that was a problem with the original one, but, you know, fair enough if you want it. So really, all you're really paying for with this expansion and with this box is a small deck of cards, which gives you a few more coffee orders, but for the most part, it essentially gives you the cakes. And the cakes are basically just one-off abilities. So as you go through the game, as you do more orders, and as certain ones come out of the deck, you get cakes that you can do, which allow you to have these cards that might just get your resource, they might let you do some shenanigans with the game. They're basically just one-off special abilities. But man, cool Blummy, if you thought the original was produced well, look at these! Oh my god! Look at these things. These are multi-layered little plastic cakes, and I kid you not, the only reason these are in the game is that when you actually get an order that has like a cake attributable to it, whatever that relates to it, you basically put the cake on the card. So if I've got a card here we go, cake goes on the card. That's literally it. They're not differentiated or anything. You know, there's all these different types here, but there's no reason for me to put this little, like, you know, creamy sponge one on there, or this pink gateau wedding cake one, or this chocolate death by chocolate one here, or god damn, I just want to eat some of these. They're just so tasty. Do not eat them, I recommend. But god, they look so amazing, and they're basically just a placeholder marker. Yeah, most games would not create something as nice as this for something that was a vital component. I've got Sweet Mess behind me on this shelf. Remember the one from Pika Games I talked about a couple of years back? How nicely produced that is. That's all about baking. That is entirely all about baking, and they don't have anything like this. And this is just like from Career Board Games. I'm really impressed. I just wish there was a bit more to them than that, and that's kind of the thing with this expansion. I mean, you have a few different upgrade tiles, so you can kind of have some more complex upgrade tiles that are a bit more interesting. That's nice, you know, not really added complexity, but yeah, there's not really that many extra rules. I mean, it is mainly just these cake cards. That's pretty much what you're getting, and the abilities on them are fine, but they're not exactly groundbreaking. They're just nice little things to help you along and just add a little bit of variety to the game. So, as an expansion, it is not essential by any means. There is nothing that this expansion does that fixes the old one. If anything, it causes a few, like 1 or 2 other storage problems, because you've got the 2 trays that you didn't really need, you've got these 4 boards that I didn't really care about, and, you know, but you can't really easily fit these in the insert for the original game, so you've got to take the insert out of the original, which is, I remind you, holding your glass cups very nicely and stuff, in order to get everything in the original box. I don't know, that just feels a little bit annoying from the expansion to do that. But it's a nice expansion. It's fine, it does the job, but it's not essential. You know, so I don't think you need to rush out and get it. But if you really just wanted a little bit of an extra gimmick or a little bit of an extra, like, you know, brightness to go with your game, then it will do the job and it won't overcomplicate things. As long as you're willing to take the storage needs out, and obviously bearing in mind it's not language independent, so you will have to deal with the text on cards if you end up with a Korean copy. So this expansion's fine. I give it a 6 out of 10 overall. It does the job, it's nice, it's pleasant, but it doesn't really add a ton to the original game. It's just a good thing that it doesn't add too much either. So it's very much just a, if you feel like it, then by all means go for it. So now we move on to Shall We? This is the new game for 2025, and I had to look this up on BGG. This is a re-implementation of an old Reiner Knizia game called Start 11, which was already a re-implementation of something called Alpha Rouse, which I believe is the original name. Now, normally I don't pay a lot of rank attention to Board Game Geek, particularly with the top 500 games, but Start 11 is ranked 16,000 on Board Game Geek. And Alpha Rouse, 1925, I mean that's how old the game is, ranked 28,000. That's kind of worrying, because if you're going to re-implement a game, you might want to re-implement one that's popular, I don't know. But I figured, you know what, let's go into it. It looks bright on the cover, let's see what it's like. Well, basically, you have got a bunch of tracks with these shell numbers on them, and it looks like they've got weird number settings. It's just so it faces both perspectives, which is quite a nice little touch. The box doesn't exactly give you a lot. I mean, it basically gives you some setup tiles which are not language independent. It gives you 4 of these like stands in order to place your shell dominoes, shall we say, because it is very similar. And you've basically got a bag full of the things. So they basically are very thin shells with the numbers on them. So it kind of does have that sort of domino-esque feel. But the idea is that you will have a bunch of them on your stand, like 17 odd. I've just got a few here. And the object of the game is to get rid of all your tiles. And then everybody totals up the points of their tiles, see who's got the lowest, then do another couple of rounds, then total up the points, see who got the lowest, you know, that kind of thing. But the idea is that these rows go from 0 to 17 in the different colors. Player count will determine what colors you use. In the basic game, you just use it as it is. In the more advanced games, you can flip the board over to have a slightly more weird janky setup of the rows, or you can use those message in a bottle tiles, which are these things here, to basically make the bonuses on certain rows different for different games. But basically what it boils down to is your turn is to draw a couple of tiles or to play up to 2 tiles. And drawing them just means taking them out of the bag and shoving them on your board, which is obviously adding more points for you to end the game with. And playing 2 tiles is just a case of placing them on the board in the required spot. But tile placement rules is that they must be placed to another adjacent tile. So some of them are going to be on the board already. And so let's say if the 12 orange is here, well, I could play the 13 orange, and that's fine. If you're able to play 2 tiles in ascending or descending order, you get to pass one of your tiles to the player on the left. So you basically get to get rid of another tile as a kind of bonus. And that's kind of the whole game. Yeah, I'm not joking. That's it. What exactly is this? You know, I mean, I don't know anything about the original games, Alpha Rouse or, you know, Start 11 or whatever it was called. But you remember I made the little joke about decision space when I was talking about Purrfect Place? Where's the decision space in this one? This just feels like nothing. It's a 2 to 4 player game, 30 minutes, so it's meant to be short, it's meant to be light. But you don't feel like you make any decisions in this game. You basically have a choice. Put tiles out if the numbers are there, or don't put the tiles out and draw more. That is your decision, the whole game. Every turn is just that. There is no way you know what other players have. It's impossible. I mean, there is 1 shell, I believe, for every single number on this board. So you know that everything's unique. But you're not showing your numbers to other players. So there's no way that you can, you know, gauge what other people have. So there's no point caring what the opponents do. It will just happen. But if you can put tiles out, you put tiles out. You know, I mean, are you really going to draw tiles endlessly until you can draw 2 of the same color and number ascending and hope you do that? I mean, again, that's just blind luck of the draw of drawing them out of the bag. But that's all the game is. It's just literally that. So I've got these, you know, shells here, and I go, right, well, I can't place any of those, so I'll draw a couple of tiles. I draw 2 tiles out of the bag. One of those happens to be a 10 orange. I can't place a 10 orange. I'll leave it there. Eventually, somebody puts down the 11 orange. I don't know, I'm just going to put down the 11 green just to showcase here. And, you know, now you're like, oh, I can now conveniently put down the 10 and the 9. And that means I get to pass 1 tile to the person on my left. There's no decision making. You just basically do what the tiles let you do. I mean, this is the Reiner Knizia game. Reiner Knizia is meant to make a bunch of these really clever games that have little quirks. Maybe I'm going deaf, dumb, and blind with this one. I don't know. But Reiner Knizia is not the, you know, the god of board games like some people make him out to be. He has made a ton of board games. Give the guy credit. He's a hard-working person. But when you make that many games, you're going to make a few that are really, really great. You're going to make way more that are garbage. You know, that are really bad games. This one, it feels bad to call it garbage, but there's just nothing here. You know, you might think, well, it's meant to be a light game that you can play with kids, you can play with family, but again, you're not making decisions here. There's a couple of tiny little quirks with, you know, if you put stuff on the pearl spaces or whatever, but that's really kind of nothing. The only thing that, like, makes the game a little bit more interesting is that when you get, like, the bonus of, like, giving a tile to the one on your left or something, you can basically vary what those bonuses are by setting up these message in a bottle tiles before the game starts, providing you've got the English language of them. But that's the only thing that varies this game up. Nothing else does. And so when I've shown it to people and we've played it, we've just been mostly bored. You know, we're not like hating the game or anything like that, but we just don't feel like we're contributing anything or doing anything that requires mental capacity. I'm pretty sure that, you know, I gave it a sort of comparison to Dominoes earlier. I mean, it kind of does feel a bit like Dominoes, but I swear even Dominoes probably has more of a thought process or something that you go through. Purrfect Place, I said that, you know, there's only so much you need to think about in this one. I think this one has more decision space than this one. It just... And maybe I'm being a bit harsh on it, you know, because it's not meant for me. I mean, this is definitely not meant for gamers at all. And I think that's something you got to bear in mind. None of these games are really meant for gamers. I mean, we've got a little filler, we've got the light coffee game, but even that one, as a gamer, I can see the merits of that one. I can't see the merits of this. If you think like, oh, well, I'm going to play it with, you know, people that are really young, you know, like my 8-year-old. I feel like your 8-year-old will be able to handle something a little bit more interesting than this. We've got loads of different gateway games. I mean, Ticket to Ride, one of the best gateway games in existence, still has you make more decisions in terms of what you do with your cards, where you go, whether you block someone else off, whether you get onto a different route and such, especially with the expansion maps that are thrown in every now and then. But even just the base set USA Ticket to Ride will have you make more decisions than this one does. So why would I play this one? I mean, rating this one is kind of annoying, really. I mean, it is very quick to play. It is quick to play. It's quick to learn. It's produced well. You know, the standees work in that, and you know, it's a very light game that you can play with anybody. But it's just fundamentally quite boring. So it scores points for production and ease of play, and you know, for the target market it's suited for, it will work, I think, all right. But I just think that the target market can do better with games that make them think a little bit more while still being fun, enjoyable, and simple. This one, for something that is done by Reiner Knizia of all people, I feel like this was his off day. You know, while he was creating this really clever, quirky little game that's like, ooh, that's a little bit tougher than you think, you know, and then sort of thought, oh yeah, Lost Cities, you know, this, you know, simple card game, but then, oh, there's a little bit of tug of play there, a little bit of like, oh, get in your opponent's head type thing, you know, little clever games like that. This one just feels like he was, I don't know, on an off day, on holiday, on drugs, I don't know, but something, but I don't get the appeal of this one. I just think it's going to look nice on the table, but it's not going to leave you with a satisfying, you know, playthrough. I give it a 4 out of 10, below average. You know, it's produced well, simple, and it's not like an anger-inducing game. There are games I've given like a 2, 3 out of 10 that are like, you know, for what effort you have to put into them, you know, their components are horrible, or for all the rules you got to learn, the gameplay isn't fun, or they're too punishing. This is a light little dominoes game, so it's like whatever, but I still think you can do better, you know, honestly. So not a big fan of this one either. So yeah, there you go. There's a few little games from Career Board Games. Not exactly glowing statements, I'll admit, but, you know, you can't always win them all. You know, Purrfect Place will suit you okay for a light filler if you just want this in your game cafe and you just want something that you can just sort of chuck on the table for a bit and you like cats. This will do the job. It's fine. It's just nothing spectacular. But, you know, Coffee Rush, I think, is like your winning one here. So I don't recommend Shall We, honestly, but I think Coffee Rush is worth a look. You know, 7 out of 10, it's good. I don't think you even need to worry too much about the cake expansion. I mean, if you really like the game, then by all means grab that expansion, but I think this on its own is a perfectly fine game. You know, it's produced immaculately well. It's simple rules. It's a bit of a laugh. It gets you thinking of, you know, it gets you in that kind of coffee shop mood. I mean, hell, you can take it to a coffee shop and play it there, you know, and it will certainly get some interesting looks from people. But yeah, I think this on its own is a perfectly fine gateway game that, you know, is the recommended out of this bunch. Maybe I'm missing something with Shall We? By all means, let me know in the comments if I am, but I just don't see it. So that's it for me on this episode of the Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube. This won't be going on Board Game Geek because it's one compilation video and that just doesn't tend to work. Well, if it does, maybe I'll put it in the Coffee Rush session. We'll see. And if so, please, by all means, thumb it up. But also let me know your comments down below. Have you played any of these games? What are your thoughts? Do you agree with me on the pros and cons? Particularly with Shall We? I mean, am I just missing something? By all means, if I'm missing something with this game, then let me know, because at the moment, I just don't quite see it. But like I say, keep it civil, keep it brief. So take care, and remember, regardless of whether your preference is kitty cats, seashells, or iced coffee, it's still only a game, so bye for now.